I'm Eric Knight, founder and president of Remarkable Technologies and a UCONN graduate, very proud UCONN grad. And I'm here today to talk about inventions, entrepreneurship, and other things that are inspiring to School of Engineering. I have a variety of inventions and patents and many things also covered by trade secrets, so a variety of different intellectual property vehicles. I'm just an ordinary person with maybe an active imagination and some good schooling to be able to give me some of the structured thoughts, to be able to take the concept that I have, to be able to then produce the prototype, because the first step in the invention process is to create a prototype, so you really have to think through the process of how to create the mechanism. But I have just a bachelor's degree, and I've gone through the invention process a number of times, and again I have a number of patents, and it's just I don't consider myself anything out of the ordinary other than having the motivation and the passion to take an idea from when it pops into my head all the way through to market. It's an invention called the acoustic, and it's a scuba diving invention, as you mentioned, and when you shake it makes a sound. And underwater, the sound, because of the density of the water, the sound really carries. And the need for this is that underwater, you obviously can't talk underwater, and with your dive buddy, if you see something that is dangerous or you want to get your dive buddy's attention, the old way of doing it is take out your knife and bang on your high pressure cylinder, your air tank, with a knife. And when I was learning to dive, I thought that was a very odd thing to do, but my dive master said that's how it's been done since the invention of scuba, but I just thought it was strange to be tapping on a high pressure cylinder with a sharp object. So I came up with this device called the acoustic that you swim with it underwater, and when you want to get your dive buddy's attention, you just shake it. And the patentable part is coming up with a mechanism inside so that when you're swimming with it, it doesn't make a sound. So there's a mechanism inside that's the patentable element, and this is patented, and this is also sold all over the world. Yeah, I've been flying rockets since I was a youngster, and I know when I go flying rockets with my cousins or family how excited kids are about rockets. You got something with flames coming out and going up into the air, so you can't get much more exciting than that. So I was thinking, well, how could we make rocketry an educational experience? So not only you get the fun of it, you obviously got their attention, then they can learn science and physics and math about the rockets. So I thought of, well, you have these little model rockets, but would there be a way to create a rocketry system that would fly into space and bring payloads and experiments into space? So I had been doing some rocketry endeavors with some other adults in larger scale rockets, but one morning, it was actually in the middle of the night, a name popped into my head, and the name was, again, a lot of these things just come to you, and it was Up Aerospace. And up, obviously, being the direction, but what I imagined, what came to me was the name, the letters U and P stood for unlimited possibilities. And all this kind of came to me, I said, boy, if there was a possibility to create a small aerospace company called Up Aerospace that would allow students to be able to build their experiments, fly them into space, get them come back down, that would be a really cool thing. So I did some test markets, found out that schools would be interested if there was such a company existed, and then partnered with other aerospace people and created a company that is now flying a small rocket that there's a launch facility in New Mexico that flies experiments for students and small companies into space. This one here is one of my most famous inventions, one of my earliest ones. Let me just bring this over here. It's called the parachute. It's a wind resistance training shirt. Came up with this idea in the middle to late 80s. And so I had a patent on this. The patent is now expired. I've had it for a long time, but it's been marketed all over the world while the patent was in force. And I was a former marathon runner, and one day I was running into the wind with a windbreaker that was partially zipped open. I caught a breeze, and I said, boy, I'm getting a great workout effect with this, the way the windbreaker was doing that. And I ran home, and I went and pulled out a t-shirt and an old bed sheet, cut a big circle, stapled them together, and ran outside, and this thing puffed open, and stapled the whole contraption together, and that was the original idea for the parachute. And I filed for a patent on it, and to make a long story short, it was named one of the top 100 inventions in America, and the icing on the cake was that I was invited to be a guest on the David Letterman show, on Late Night with David Letterman, with the parachute, and that really put me on the map as a significant inventor. It really kind of led me down the road of being able to do many other inventions because I became well known as an inventor. The question is, how did I use engineering principles to test it? Again, I had this idea for this wind resistance training shirt, but I needed to know how well it performed. I mean, it looks kind of weird, but would it do what I expected to do and provide wind resistance, and how much? So, in ideal circumstances, you bring this to a wind tunnel. But again, I didn't. I was only graduated a few years from college. I didn't have the money to bring it to a wind tunnel. So what I did, I needed to create a mechanism to test this thing. So I mounted a pair of some ski racks on the top of my car, and I created a sliding sled-like device with a force gauge. And then on this sliding sled with a force gauge, I bolted a mannequin to this thing, and then put the mannequin in the parachute. And so I took my car out with the mannequin on this sliding thing and drove it at different speeds, and then measured the different wind resistance essentially at different speeds, and then was able to chart it out, and then took the shirt off the mannequin and compared it to, as a control. And so it was a crude way, but it was the engineering process. Okay, I understand about force and acceleration and how to measure stresses and strains, and to be able to create the mechanism so it applied basically mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, some knowledge of aerodynamics, of many of the things and courses that I took when I was at UCONN. So all those things came together in order for me to have the knowledge to be able to create the mechanism to be able to test this. Otherwise, I would have the invention may have not gotten off the ground, because I would have just had an idea but had no way of testing it. So even for engineers, it's really important. I found in also classes that I took at UCONN were marketing courses, psychology courses, communication sciences. Knowing how the market behaves to certain things and brands are as important sometimes as the mechanism itself, because ultimately consumers or there's someone's going to buy a product, and you have to get inside their head and understand the buying process. If you have a passion for something, go for it. Don't kick yourself later on and say, boy, I wish I did it, because I think everybody's an inventor. It's just a matter of going through the process to do that.